you've just finished up Joe Goldberg. You've been playing him for what, since like 2017?
Yeah. So just about 7 years.
And now you're done.
I'm finished except for the release,
Sure.
The release, which is its own kind of work, its own kind of.
Do you feel in character for the release for the promo?
No, not even close. The part of me that is that might match it is that there's always something grim about my relationship to the character, and therefore the whole thing, because I am sort of tasked, the one person throughout the entire apparatus who kind of like, it makes sense. I need to ground it. Everyone else is allowed to enjoy it as a piece of entertainment or frothy pop, whatever, but if I don't ground it, then it's like, well, that's when I think we're in danger of consuming it in a way that is like, damaging to our digestive system. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, he's a protagonist who's what he is. He's a murderer, and he's a manipulator, and he's an abuser, and all those things. And those words are like, they're heavy, But if they're not at least directly in the context and the subtext and the pretext of all the conversation around the show, to me, I feel like that's ironically when I get uncomfortable.
I heard you say once, it might have been to Rainn Wilson, that the best actors aren't just like making something up. They're not just pretending to be somebody. They're kind of themselves in many ways. And so like the best actors, they access a part of themselves. And you were talking about how it can be difficult to separate the actor from the character. And I found it really interesting. And then I did think that you play a psychopathic murderer.
So what part of me is that? Yeah.
That's right.
Well, not psychopathic or sociopathic, but like, okay, so, broadly, what is the truth of this thing we call mental health, mental illness, mentality? What is the portal to? What are the causes of sociopathy, psychopathy? We understand some of them. Well, I think, and then others we don't. There's still this question of nature versus nurture. For me, it's my understanding, and I suppose my personal conviction, that there's no one is made that way. It's caused, and its causes could be in utero still. They could be, the stress of the mother, the womb, fetus, all that stuff. I don't know. But so, what are the portals to it? What do I understand of the portals to rage? Or rather, the portals to sociopathy and psychopathy for me are trauma and rage. So then I think of, for myself, what traumas do I understand in my past? What do I understand about my own rage, my own capacity for rage? How it blinds my other senses, really.
So you're not accessing like the surface level part of the character, but looking at like the causes of that kind of behavior and tapping into that. And presumably that's something you've got to work out for yourself. Like directors, writers aren't telling you.
Yeah. And I actually don't think it's really there. They don't need to, obviously, for anybody who's seen the show, it's like there's indications, there's the broad major signs of it. And he does have like serious childhood abuse, but actually many people do, and they don't become like this. So then what are the other causes? I don't know. To be clear as well, I think Joe Goldberg as a character is not in any way a clinical portrayal or portrait of a person who really has this psychological makeup. In fact, whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but it's my position now that all is said and done, and I've seen the totality of his behavior. I think he's too many things. I think he's too many things at once. I don't think that that's possible for somebody. But that's where we're a show and we're a construct meant to be a portal into, well, I guess ideally a conversation like this one.
I find interesting the way that a lot of like antagonist characters, evil characters, are presented by modern media as complex results of their environment, and that's something that you're hinting at there. But for a lot of people, it becomes a sort of apologetic for the character. And so a lot of these, like, there's a lot of expanded universe stuff where people tell the backstories of the Joker or evil characters, and they almost sort of try to humanize them in a way that I think some people think is a little bit troublesome. Interestingly, some people don't do this. Like when Bryan Cranston talks about Walter White, who is undeniably an incredibly complex character, he always just sort of says, he's like, stops people and says, like, no, he's like a murderer and a terrible person. Is that the relationship you have with this character? Like, do you do any kind of defense of the moral character of this person based on those characteristics, or is it just like it's a bad guy, like, you know, full stop?
I suppose I've done both. I've done the latter more. I've somewhat, you know, notably not spoken out against the character. I mean, some people have made it to be that. I think what I've just done is remind people in that way, like, no, he's a murderer. Don't forget, he kills her in the end. Sorry, that's not Spoilers. A spoiler. I mean, it's clear, you know, it's from day one. That's the whole purpose of the show is called You, and it's called You because in the book, which it's based on, it's written in the first person. You walk into the store and I notice that you are wearing this, and so the reader is made to feel through that literary device, literally like the victim, the object of this man's desire and eventually rage and lethal rage. And that's I don't even remember what your question is at this point, but you know, that's a very strong device. It's a very, very, very strong device. And I'm recalling your question now. So at this point, I would love for the work to speak for itself. And I think in time, its legacy, it will. But, you know, we live in an age where it's like you can't do a thing and just let the thing be the thing. You also have to talk about it a lot in press.
Yeah.
You also have to talk about it a lot in press. And so because I have to do that, I have just thought, like, how much can I bring reality into this conversation? Because he's not, people speak about him like he's a romantic hero. And, you know, he's not. He's clearly not. But the point is that he is dangerously and disturbingly close to and following the logic of romantic heroism.
Yeah, which is so often the case for the self-justification of the character himself. Like, not you justifying the character, but internally the world. It's. I mean, that's what Joe Goldberg constantly does. Like, I'm doing monologue. This because I have to. This is for love. This is for you. I'm interested in you particularly here, though, because you're the second Bahá'í that I've had on the show. The other being Rainn Wilson. That's right. And I sort of dug into the Bahá'í Faith a little bit with Rainn Wilson, but I'm sure that you've talked a lot to interviewers and to curious members of the public about how difficult it is to play a psychopath and all of this kind of stuff, but specifically with regards to a religious belief. I've heard you complain before about how you'll sometimes read scripts and they'll be littered with, like, essentially blasphemy, people saying, oh my God, you know, Jesus Christ. And how, like, being a Bahá'í, believing Jesus is a manifestation of God, it's a little bit uncomfortable and you kind of would rather not. And then I think surely that's turned up to 11 when it comes to this kind of character. So is there any, like, religious conflict for you in trying to access that part of yourself with this character?
Definitely. As the way you named it, definitely. You know, as a person who grew up feeling profoundly, like, resistant to and wary of and just against religion, you know, that's not the word it's not the way it kind of appears in my own sort of thinking and sensibility. But yeah, basically, as you said it, You know, the funny thing about the name Jesus, which is invoked somewhat ironically or paradoxically or fittingly by, you know, all of Western civilization, regardless of what they proclaim their belief to be. God, actually a word too, you know, with a lowercase g, a word I never would have used seriously, you know, until my mid-20s. They're expletives, you know. Both the name Jesus and the word God are words that are inimitably unparalleled in their invocation of a certain kind of, like, oh God, you know, or Jesus Christ, You know, those 2 words. I'm telling you, man, those 3 words, God and Jesus Christ, are used as much or more than any other expletive in scripts in a way that it's clearly part of a modern vernacular, and I'm telling you, when you try to replace that word with something else, it doesn't work, at least for the person who wrote it. I got into this, and you know, by the way, I approached this never having thought about it deeply.
Yeah.
I just started to realize, this being the first role I took after becoming a Baha'i, and like reorienting my interior life, you know, as I understood it to be in relationship to the body of Baha'u'llah's teachings. I found that saying the word God, which I had come to say reverently in prayer, personally, you know, in my mind, and the name Jesus Christ, which, you know, again, growing up so not religious or Christian, really did view religiosity and Christianity as, well, I mean, I think I just adopted this loose approximation of the Marxist view, like religion is the opiate of the masses, you know, and having never read any of that literature myself, right?
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, in a sense, I've never thought of it in this particular way right now, but becoming a Baha'i for me was truly coming to think for myself. And once I truly thought for myself, all words had a different meaning, particularly God, and then this other one, Jesus Christ. And I just noticed they're everywhere. They're just littered everywhere as expletives. This is the longest answer possible to such a short question. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, because I just started to change it. I tried to change it. In the voiceovers, I'd made it a joke. I would invoke all the names of different saints and different, I think at one point I said Thetan, which I believe is the something from Scientology, isn't it?
Oh, right.
I was just trying to use other...
Yeah, something,
you know, I think
else.
I said Mother Teresa. I think I invoked the name of Gandhi at some point.
Yeah.
I was just trying to use other ones, and I knew that none of them would work.
Yeah.
But it was sort of a joke that I was playing with myself, because nothing works the way the name God does.
Nothing works like God. Nothing works like the name of God. Yeah. I think there's something in the idea of it being an expletive too, though, because like, it's easy enough to replace words, but the point of expletives is that they say something very specific, and it is a bit cringe-making when, if you watch like a pre-Watershed soap opera and the characters aren't allowed to swear, and it's like you know, somebody's getting robbed, and they're like, "Give me the flipping money right now," and it's just it's not just a bit cringe, but it's also like unbelievable.
It's inauthentic.
Yeah, like I don't think that's how people speak, and it is true that it's just become so embedded in the language that that's probably why. But I do think that people aren't actually thinking about cursing God or Jesus Christ as people when they say these words.
No, not at all. No, yeah. And by the way, I don't see it as actually blasphemous.
Yeah, right.
I just see it as me realizing the power of those words and wanting to not use those words in that way, because I had all my life again. Yeah, it's almost it's kind of eerie to think like, you know, you might be, it's like sorcery or something. You're saying a magical spell without really realizing it. You're invoking this really important name and not knowing what you're doing, you know? Yeah, I mean, again, you know, yes, on one hand, but you know, the mention of something like sorcery or superstition, you know, that to me is like also not, to me, it's not, and I mean, you're rigorously rational, so I know that's not what you're saying, but I think if I try to dig into what it is, like what I think it might be, it's a deference. Yes, it's an important deference, and that deference is not because I'm afraid of sinning or some kind of evil consequence. I think that deference helps me at all times to continually reorient myself towards reality. If you enjoyed that clip, you can watch the full episode with Penn Badgley by clicking the link that's on your screen. To support my work and get early, ad-free access to videos, subscribe to my Substack at alexoconnor.com. Thanks for watching.